Hey everybody, Rich here, South Florida Beekeeping with Rich. If you remember the video from February the 9th, I said it wasn't the video I was coming out here to do. Okay, so now I'm going to do the video that I was coming out here to do. I'm going to show you how to apply a granule to the ground around the bees for small hive beetles that is not the grub X. Okay? As it happened, Friday's video from Mr. Dunn was precisely apropos to this. If you watch Fred Dunn's video from Friday of this week, or
9th
the 9th
of February,
okay, February
2024.
9th. That's true. February 9th, 2024. He started out with video footage of his bees literally crawling into his bird feeders, which had nothing in them except Russian oil sunflower seeds. And they weren't crawling in there for the sunflower seeds. They were crawling in there for whatever the powdery coating was on them, because hungry bees will go after anything that even remotely is like pollen. I'm surprised he didn't actually go and do a video about his chicken feed, because that's where you often see it more often. You'll see many people like the Dirt Rooster have shown videos. It's like, it's spring, my bees are out, but there's no pollen out for them yet, so they're rolling around in the chicken feed. All right. So to start this whole thing, we'll get the bees a little calmed down. Okay. And I just did that one already, so it's done. So if you come over here, one of the great things about GrubX is that the active ingredient in GrubX is carried in a clay base. All right, there's very little powder involved in this, very little cornmeal. Almost all the other products that have a chemical in them that'll kill soil grubs is cornmeal based. Okay, so before I found GrubX, I was using this stuff because it had been what I've always used. I have a Royal Poinciana tree in my front yard, and there is a Royal Poinciana caterpillar, which comes from a grub that overwinters in the soil, then comes up in the spring, and the caterpillars hatch and they go up into the tree and they denude the tree. And it's a real big setback for them. So I treat twice a year with something along this line to make sure that my Royal Poincianas don't get beat back by that. It's taken them almost 3 years to get back to normal after a bad infestation of those caterpillars. But the problem is, it's a cornmeal. Now, probably I could just spread this the way I would the GrubX, which doesn't mean working it into the ground much. But I'd rather be safe than sorry. The bees are all bringing in pollen. There's plenty of pollen out there. It's South Florida. It is February the 10th. And I'm going to show you the way I put this stuff down and the way I'm a little on the safe side doing it. I'm not just going to spread it around just on the off chance some bee wants to roll around in it. Now, there's a chemical that kills grubs and ticks and ants. Well, if it kills ants, is a possibility it might kill honeybees. The other things I'm not, that don't really indicate it. But I'm just going to show you the way I do it, kind of a belt and suspenders. So let's get started. Obviously, I'm doubly paranoid this year since this hive just got poisoned. But it wasn't from anything like this. Not at that level. A little bit more. And I never keep bags of this stuff around. Whatever doesn't get used in the bee yard, I'll put as a perimeter treatment on the outside of the house.
Is that because it has a short shelf life once it's opened?
I don't really think it has a short shelf life, but our humidities are so high that the stuff does get a little on the damp side. Okay. So the tools I use for this is what's called a scuttle hole or a hula hoe. A hard-tined rake with a straight back, and a leaf rake. And at the very end, I'll use a broom to sweep off any that might be on the cement sections. But we start with the hula hoe. I don't know if there's enough room in here. No, not really enough room in there. So I come over here. Where they're mostly going to be, they're going to be underneath here. So as you can see, what this does is it works up the top 3/4 of an inch or so of the soil and turns the stuff into it. And if you have a nice hard pan like I have here from having kept it like this for years, just a quick scrape. We'll start the process of getting it turned in. And at the same time, I can weed this is my primary method of keeping the weeds out of here is this tool. I don't use chemicals in here.
Is this something you would normally water in also?
Yes.
Okay.
But that's not first in line here. I know you won't get me doing this part, but and I'm not really working the soil. This is all leaves back here. I'm just shuffling it around so that it gets underneath the leaf cover on top. All right.
And this is mainly to kill the small hive beetles. Is that correct?
This is my treatment for small hive beetles.
Is this stuff as effective as the Grub-X?
I don't have any way of actually answering that. It's effective. It's done a good job of killing the grubs that would make for the Royal Poinciana caterpillar. Is it effective on one grub as another? I don't know. Is it actually label specified for the beetle that we're talking about? No, it's not. It's not listed on the label. Label is the law, but neither is Grub-X, although they're probably trying to get it on there at this point. So yeah, what we're doing here is an off-label use of the product because it doesn't actually list this particular grub. But grubs are grubs, pretty much.
My next question is there a reason why you can't just keep using Grub-X?
Of course, there's a reason. If you continue to use the Grub-X all the time, then you're going to breed yourself a super small hive beetle, and we don't need that.
So the idea is to switch chemicals up.
I switched the chemicals up. GrubX is supposed to last about 4 months. All these last about 4 months out in the open environment. So I'll use GrubX, then I'll use something else. This time it's Ortho Bug Be Gone. Next time I'll use a product by another company, and then I will use GrubX again. But I always keep the GrubX background since it is done with clay base. It isn't as hygroscopic as stuff done with the cornmeal is. So I can keep a bag rolled up and clamped shut. And so it's like a hive that was in this position earlier this year. I foolishly moved it too far over to the side, and next thing I knew, it had a bunch of small hive beetles in it. So I came out here with the GrubX, put the GrubX down. Of course, I killed as many small hive beetles as I could that were on the inner cover. But, you know, by the next time I went in to do an inspection, I was down to 1 or 2 small hive beetles again. And I do not really understand why it is so effective at doing what it does, but it does it. So are these all equally? No, I don't know that, but they're good enough. I mean, if your level of containment is here and this one does it to this level and this one does it to this level, I don't care as long as they'll do it above this level. Now, of course, you guys who have grass underneath here, all you do is throw that stuff around, take the leaf rake and rake it. Boom, you're done. It's a little less work for you than it is for me, but I really enjoy bare earth under my hives. For one thing, it allowed me to realize really quickly that I had a problem in that hive. If I'd had grass down there, I wouldn't have noticed it. Now, like I said a moment ago, you guys with grass, all you have to do is the leaf rake and then take a hose and spray it down and you're good to go. Me, I do all this too.
Now, you said something about it's not hydroscopic. So maybe for those of us who did not major in forestry, you could explain what you mean by hydroscopic.
All right. Well, our standard humidity in South Florida rarely, it's a great day if our humidity is down to 70%. Most of the time, our humidity is above 80 to 85% on a fairly sunny day, you know, and it didn't rain the day before. So hygroscopic means that something absorbs moisture from the air. And we have so much moisture in our air that it can be a real issue.
Oh, well, I'm glad you cleared that up because I always thought hydroscopic meant it floated. But what it means is it just absorbs humidity.
Yeah, it absorbs atmospheric moisture.
Cool. I notice also you're using the back end of the rake.
Yes, I'm using the back of the hoe. That's why I specified a stiff-tined rake with a straight back. Oh. Actually, take a second here. Here, I'll finish this in a second. But in case you wonder what this hoe is usually used for, okay, this was some bird seed that got spread over here. I've been meaning to come out and do this anyway, so that's what you actually use this tool for, is a way to remove weeds. It passes just underneath the surface and
yanks them up by the root.
Slices them below the root crown and above the root. The root crown, if you pull something up and it breaks off at soil level, you usually left the root crown behind. and it'll just sprout back up from there and be weaker next time you go to pull it out. You get it below the root crown, there's no sprouting. So. Alrighty. And that leaves us just with raking it to make it pretty. Smooth it out. And really, the only thing left to do now, which I'm not going to bother to put on videotape, is I usually would try to do this if it was going to be raining sometime like in the afternoon, but we're not supposed to have rain for the next 2 or 3 days. But I wanted to get this done anyway. So I'm just going to bring the hose back here and give it a quick spritz, just lightly, to settle everything down and activate it.
I have questions.
You have questions.
Always.
Of course you do.
Can you compare the two chemicals in those bags?
Oh, yes, of course.
I thought you were planning to do that.
I am planning on doing that. You just reminded me. Okay, so GrubX, active ingredient. Chlorotranoprol.
I hope people can see that. Okay, now it looks like it might be clear. Okay.
Okay.
Wow, it's only 0.8%. 0.08%.
0.08%. Doesn't take much.
Yep.
And the active ingredient in this one is bifenthrin.
There's a
Bifenthrin.
honey. It's
You need me to squish it somehow.
Well, you've got a glare, and I can't read through the glare.
Just
that's better, thanks. Okay, and that's
0.2%. Yeah. So in the same range, basically. So it helps keep the ants down. And if I do come out here and I see ants in a hive, well, I mean, particularly up in the feeder shim, first thing I do, of course, is throw some cinnamon powder on it. And if you don't believe me, well, how many people keep their cinnamon powder in the bee yard? It is terrific stuff for repelling ants. So if you had them in your feeder shim or anywhere else, just liberally sprinkle cinnamon powder around it and it'll drive them away. Works beautifully. But it can also, spread it around out here and it will knock out any ants that might be in the area, which is always a good thing.
Was there a reason that you picked that particular brand over any others to use with the grub in alternating?
Yeah, because last time I used a different chemical than this one. I don't remember what it is right now, but I knew I didn't use the Ortho Bug Be Gone. And I don't let price guide me on this. I mean, some of these are twice as much as others for the same weight of bag, but I just, last time, I mean, this stuff is pretty cheap. Last time I used some stuff that was pretty expensive, but not as expensive as the GrubX. If all I remember is, okay, I used the cheap stuff last time, so this time I'm going to use the GrubX. By cheap stuff, I do not mean the quality of what the product does, but rather that it's been around long enough that it's no longer as expensive as it once was.
And so watering in is the last step.
Watering in is the last step, and that's just a quick spritz on the ground out here.
And it lasts about 4 months?
Usually lasts around 4 months. Again, that's assuming this is South Florida. When we had technically 22 inches of rain in 3 days at our house here, we had 19 in 3 days. Yeah, you really do need to reapply after that. I don't care if it's only been 6, 7 weeks. If you get that kind of rainfall, you need to reapply. And we had 2 of those rainfalls last year. We had the second one was 19 inches. We didn't get quite that here, but yeah, if you get a whole lot of rain in like a 3-day period, then yes, you do need to reapply. But beyond that, there you go. I just wanted you guys, particularly in the spring here, if you can time it so that you use the Grub X first thing in the spring, that's great. It just didn't happen to work because of all this rain we had. I've had to use different things along the way. So it didn't work for me this time around to use the Grub X first thing in the spring. And I'm always concerned about whether bees are going to try to get into cornflower. They don't understand this part of it. But as you can see, there weren't any bees trying to go after the bucket of stuff I had out here, and nobody's interested. Everybody's bringing in plenty of pollen.
And you also fed them first.
And I also fed them first, yeah. And if you look, the number 1's getting ready to do its afternoon orientation flight.
Yeah, 3 just finished. Oh yeah, 1's getting ready. So, how long have you been using this particular type of treatment?
This is going into my 3rd year now.
And there's never been any disadvantage to it?
What other people show as being not a problem, I would consider to be a serious problem if I saw it back here. I mean, I rarely see more than 3, 4, maybe 5 hive beetles in an entire deep hive inspection.
And what I mean, chemical wise, there's never been any bad reaction with the bees, with the hives.
No,
none of that. Okay.
I'm always a little extra careful, like you see here, to make sure that I get this stuff stirred into the top ½ inch of soil and then wetted down. And yes, no, I've never had any impact on the bees, and I don't expect to, but I'm not going to get lazy about it. This is one thing I'll get lazy about, anything I can get lazy about, but not when it comes to putting a treatment down around the hives. I'm going to do it with the greatest of care. So this has been Rich, South Florida Beekeeping with Rich. Be sure to like and subscribe. Have a great day, everybody.